The first advice I got when I told everyone that we're building a search engine better than Google in 2021 was like, what are you, nuts?
Yeah.
I kind of laughed, but also was like, maybe I am nuts. Really try to avoid non-playable characters is like the way of saying it. Like people who just go through life like as if they're on a stream and they have no like agency over themselves. A month is an insane amount of time. Nothing should ever take a month to ship. It feels like ridiculous that we can get to the moon and we split the atom. And yet if I want to understand what's going on at the border right now, it's really hard to. Like that to me is just an error in humanity. When I was a kid, I thought we have a bunch of adults, like why can't they figure out how to like share information in a normal way? Like why is everything politicized? Like I always thought this was ridiculous and I don't accept it. This is my mission if I choose to accept it.
If you've used an AI product that searches the web, there's a good chance Will Bryk's company was underneath it. Exa powers search for OpenAI, Cursor, Cognition, and a growing list of the best tech companies in the world. It's valued at $2.2 billion, and it's quietly become one of the most important pieces of infrastructure in AI. And it's all happening fast. Exa went from about 10 people to 125 and tripled its valuation in under a year. The hard part of a company growing that fast is the person running it has to grow just as fast. Will is a first-time CEO doing exactly that in real time. What I find most interesting about our conversation today is Will's inner game. Will says instead of real-life role models, he's inspired by fictional superheroes, people who decide who they are going to become and then do the work. We'll figure it out from Mission Impossible has apparently become a mantra at Exa. Today's conversation is a glimpse into Will's journey, how he's scaling himself, how he runs an AI native team, and what actually drives him. Knuckle up. Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Exa is building web search for AI agents, but Google already has a 25-year head start on indexing the web. It is the best search engine by a long distance. Why do we need a new web search tool for AI?
Yeah, I mean, the short of it is that Google was built for humans, and now there's this new kid on the block called agents, and they search in very different ways. And so Google is not optimized for this new world of agents searching the web, and Exa is built for this world. I have like a list of 20 differences in humans and AI searching. One example is, humans are lazy. They type in a few keywords, then they get, some links. They click on those links. This is how humans used to search. But agents, they're not lazy at all. They make very complex queries. They could instantly output a paragraph explaining exactly what the information they want. And they don't really want a list of links. They want like a blob of data that exactly captures what they want. So another interesting thing is, Google was optimized so that every link correctly is relevant to the query, because you might click on the third one, you might click on the second one, but to an agent, it actually wants a very diverse amount of information because it's just gobbling it up all at once. So these are just a few of the examples, and there are, dozens.
But even so, even if AI agents are searching differently, isn't this like such an important piece of infrastructure for AI agents that OpenAI, Google, Anthropic would want to own it in-house? Like, how can an independent company even exist against the onslaught of the big labs?
Yeah. So first of all, like it's very, very hard to build a search engine. Very few organizations on the planet have ever done it. You have to crawl a massive amount of data, exabytes of data, and then you have to, do a lot of research over years to, given a query, how do you filter down 1 trillion documents, right? So it's very hard. So only like the very big companies and startups crazy enough to work on it for years can do this kind of thing. And then I think Exa is in a unique position where we are happy to be neutral and search infrastructure that powers any company. We serve 5,000 companies now. We don't need to be a platform that people come to. So I think the biggest reason why a company like Exa could exist is that these other big companies like a Google, they're not trying to enable Googles inside every product. They want you to go to Google and use it, right? There's an advantage for Exa that we don't need people to come to Exa. We want to enable every company, which is like fundamentally different strategy from these companies.
Are there product decisions that you are making that fundamentally a Google or an OpenAI will not be able to make for this?
For example, like we expose the data of our index to all these companies so that they could do whatever, like do downstream tests with it. Whereas like Google or OpenAI, they'll more just do some sort of like LLM summary of any data that they analyze.
Are there areas where those guys are still ahead of you, which you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, for example, Google has probably on the order of 1 trillion documents in their index. We're not there yet. It's very expensive. However, you don't actually need 1 trillion documents to be useful. In fact, like, a lot of customers don't want all the data on the web because a lot of it is pretty crappy. So you want just like the highest quality information. So, but index scale is one thing that we are currently scaling up like crazy to get to hundreds of billions. Yeah.
Is the goal a medium to long term to remain a search API, or you think beyond that, like you'll become part of the infrastructure for AI agents? Like, what's the long vision here?
Yeah, it's less about search. Search is almost an implementation detail towards the information layer. Like we just want to give people high quality information. So for example, like you could have perfect search, but if you're searching over information that's incorrect, you're a great search engine, but you're not a great information engine, right? So like ultimately Exa will just be the information layer for any company that needs information, data.
Is a key part of it that you're crawling real-time search? Because like any lab has already indexed the world's information to feed it for training, right? So if I say X is good or Y is good, they've trained the model for a certain amount, like till a certain date.
Yeah.
And so does Exa come in where it's real-time information, or where does Exa come in where Anthropic or OpenAI might fail?
Yeah. So even if like a lab downloads the whole internet and pre-trains a model on it and then post-trains on that data. Okay, so now you have a very compressed version of the internet. And so one problem, like you said, is like it doesn't have real-time information. So it needs to use retrieval because the world's information is constantly changing. But also even things that are old, like it can't memorize it. So it doesn't remember my birthday, even though that doesn't change. Like yes, these LLMs, they're not going to remember Will's birthday. Let's say it was in some blog post somewhere, right? Because it has to compress the whole internet. So they have to rely on retrieval for like long tail information that, it's going to know Albert Einstein's birthday, but it's not going to know Will Bryk's birthday. And then real-time information. These are kind of like two categories.
As you kind of build this, there's competition, but there's also the big labs. And again, they'll always want to own some of it. How do you think about defensibility and moat over time for Exa?
Yeah, moat's an interesting question because the honest answer is that execution speed is the most important thing and focus, right? Like at least in the early days. Then when you start making billions, tens of billions of dollars a year, okay, now you have a lot of people who want in on that. And then you do need some answers to moats. Maybe one abstract way of thinking about it is like a company is kind of like a mix of intelligences, physical resources, and maybe, data, at least a software company. And if intelligence gets commoditized, everyone now can like have access to Fable times 1,000. And so like all the intellectual capital you've accumulated is not as much of a differentiator. Then a lot becomes like the physical resources and the information you have access to. So you can kind of think of different types of moats. There's all sorts of different physical resources, like even feedback from customers is kind of like something in the physical world that you might have a lot of. So there's a very abstract way of thinking about like moats. I still think like having really smart people at the company is going to matter for years, maybe for forever. It's hard to see how it plays out, but these are kind of like you could have moats in being just really smart people, which we have right now, in physical resources, which we are getting closer to, and then with information, which we also have a lot of. So,
taking a giant step back, I mean, it is a fascinating world we are entering in terms of like we are going to go towards an internet where AI agents are doing the searching and I'm just talking to agents. You're at the forefront of it. Like, walk me through what is your vision of how the internet will look like in the future? Because the last 20 years of the internet has been built around Google and maybe some social networks like Facebook and Twitter, but we are entering a new age and you're at the forefront of it.
Yeah, I think the internet's going to change a lot. At the same time, I think a lot will be the same. So if you think about what the internet is on like the most fundamental level, it's an information exchange network between people. So I find information from a blog post or from a YouTube video. Someone created information and then I'm consuming that information. And even if you're buying plane tickets, it's kind of like an information exchange where an airline has availability for planes, and then I want a plane ticket, and now we do this exchange over the internet, and now I have a ticket, right? So it's kind of like information exchange. And I don't think AI changes that. I think it accelerates it like crazy, where now, everyone has their AI assistant. And so you imagine every human has AI assistants, and they're exchanging information at like 1,000x the rate. So they're doing the same thing, but more of it. Maybe the analogy is like, if you take like a bazaar, like where people are exchanging goods, like humans are exchanging goods, it's kind of crazy and raucous, but then you imagine like New York Stock Exchange is like an automated version of that, and exchanges are happening way faster. They're doing the same thing, it's at a larger scale. That's kind of how I see the internet. Will it look different? I think a lot more of people's interactions with this information exchange network will be through their LLM. But I still think their internet is a place for creative expressions. People will still want to see all sorts of like YouTube videos and like types of content that people have created. So in a lot of ways, it'll be similar, just at like a crazy rate speed up.
In your view, will it be that we engage only with other humans and all informational access will be through agents? Meaning human to human on the internet, that is. Like when we go on the internet, it will only be for human interaction. Maybe the social networks or watching a video, entertainment maybe. But every time I need information, whether it's a booking available at a restaurant or some news, I'll only talk to LLMs.
Yes, I think often you'll be talking to an LLM for sure, or your LLM will be talking to an LLM. Like human bandwidth to the internet it's too slow for the speed at which the internet is going to be moving. I do think though that like, a lot of people talk as if like we're having like trillions of new laborers or trillions of things on the internet. really is like, it's still billions of humans interacting. Agents are kind of like this. We think of them as like real beings, but really they're just kind of like, they spawn and they spawn down. It's still software in the end of the day. It's not like, they don't really exist the physical way. I don't know. It's still going to be humans interacting with humans, but like you might be interacting with an software that the human created in the form of an agent.
Your origin story with Exa is pretty fascinating, given in your last job, you were literally writing a book on the history of civilization. And as part of it, you came to the conclusion that the quality of information in the world is the most important thing for civilization. And that kind of sparked, or that was the genesis of Exa, right?
That was definitely one of the big motivators. I think I've been thinking about ideas surrounding Exa since like even high school. I remember in high school, I was like, I'm going to start a new type of news organization because like I have had this frustration, and it continues to today, where it feels like ridiculous that we, can get to the moon and we split the atom. And yet if I want to understand what's going on at the border right now, it's really hard to. Like that to me is just an error in humanity. Like when I was a kid, I thought this was like, we have a bunch of adults. Like, why can't they like figure out how to like share information in a normal way? Like, why is everything politicized? Like, I always thought this was ridiculous, and I don't accept it. Like, I think that's just an error in our coordination structure. Something's wrong here, right? And I think a lot comes back to our information tools. So if, for example, let's say there was some really well-funded news organization that didn't have bad incentives and just was fully devoted to the truth, and they were super well-funded, I think that would have a huge impact on the world. So that was kind of like the thing I was imagining back then. And then over the years, I've thought of different ideas. Like me and my co-founder actually built a search engine in college together, like way before Exa, because we were just like frustrated that it's so hard to find high quality information. Again, that was like, we were upset at the state of our information tools.
What kind of search engine was that?
That one, so AI wasn't that good yet. So it was more like crowdsourcing the best URLs, kind of like Reddit, but for everything. And like really focused on like high quality URLs. I still think that'd be really cool. And it's basically using like the intelligence of humans to, with the right incentives, like just organize, here are the best URLs on this topic if I'm trying to start a company or learn about like physics or something. But then in 2021, when we started Exa, I was writing this book on the side and just like really just became obsessed with history. And just like, I always thought like, you don't need to read fiction books, because if you just read history books, it's like insane what is happening. Like the deeper you go into any part of history, the crazier it is. It's just a fascinating story of humanity. I was writing this book because I felt like no book captured the excitement I had. And I thought maybe as I was not an expert by any means, but I was just so excited. I was like, maybe I could capture this in a 300-page book. It had a really interesting structure. I was really excited about it. But as I was writing the book, I was doing a lot of research because I had to cover 5,000 years really fast, because I didn't want to write this book for my whole life. So I was doing research really, really fast. And it's just really hard to get deep into a topic using Google. So Google is great for, surface level investigations. Okay, like where is this Costco? What's the address? Stuff like that. But if you want to find give me every article on medieval, what they ate in medieval times, like across different regions of the world, like you can't expect Google to do that, right? It's not meant for this like deep research. And so, just these were the ideas in the time. And then the critical reason we started Exa was like the technology became possible to build a new type of search engine. This is a time when GB3 had recently come out. So GB3 was like this magical technology where you could type in a whole paragraph and it would fully understand all the words in your paragraph. And then Google at the time was like, you can't type in a paragraph to Google. You still can't. It just wouldn't understand anything more than a few keywords. And so like, what if you could take the technology of GB3 and put it into a search engine? You could have perfect search. That would have a huge impact on our information ecosystem and hopefully solve some of these political problems that I noticed since high school.
So it's a pretty mission-driven start of the company. How much of that now is your private fuel, or you're looking for that in every person who joins? Like, is this a recruiting filter almost for you?
So I've been doing this for 5 years, right? So like, no matter what happened at the company over the course of 5 years, I always thought this was a very noble mission, and that drives me at the foundational layer. But definitely increasingly, like there's this feeling of just like, it's almost like a video game. Like it's so fun to reach the next level. With every 10% increase in people, there's new problems, new emergent problems that we have to solve. Like now, we're starting to have interactions with not hundreds of companies, but thousands of companies, right? It's just like fascinating problems all over the place. Like soon we'll have to talk to governments. I'm very excited for every next stage. And so I that is an increasing percentage of my excitement.
But as a recruiting filter, is that a critical filter for you? Like if somebody is not bought into the mission and is joining Exa because it's a rocket ship, is that kind of a negative for you?
Okay, yes. So people's motivation for joining a company is very important to me, and like building the right culture is very important. Someone who wants to join just because it's a rocket ship, that's bad. But they don't necessarily have to believe in like improving the information ecosystem. Like that doesn't have to be their primary driver to be like, that's like not like a something I look for necessarily. I think if they do believe that, it's awesome and I get all excited. But some people are really excited about Exa for in various dimensions. So one is just like, a lot of the engineers join Exa because they're super excited about exabyte scale systems. That's really cool. Or training models for retrieval. It's just like a fascinating problem. That's okay too. I think definitely I look for passion and quirkiness and like thinking differently. They don't necessarily have to believe in that mission. I think it's actually my job to convince them that this is the most important thing in the world. I have not done the best job. I think. I think like it's something I think about a lot. Is like I am so excited about this, and I don't think I've done a great job of explaining it because it's kind of hard. It's like perfect search. What does that really mean? Like, for example, if I had enough time, I would make a video explaining what is the day in the life of someone with perfect search. What does the world look like? So there's more work to be done for me there.
What I understood from preparing for this discussion was that you did hire for rebelliousness in the early days and first principles thinking. How much of that is then scalable, right? Like the first 100, maybe they were all rebels of some form, but has it stopped scaling as you've gone from 10 people to 125 people and ahead?
I wouldn't say it's rebels. I think there was some article that wrote that. It's not quite rebels because like you can have a rebel without a cause, someone who just wants to be different. That's not good. You want as first principles thinkers, meaning like people who just like will really think about the problem and not care how it's been done before. We've always hired for that at Exa. We've always attracted people like that because, from the beginning, it was like, we're going to build a better search engine than Google. Only someone who could like think from first principles could imagine that that's possible. And so we continue to really try to hire only people like that. Problem is you might run out of people like that. Like there's not infinite supply of people who are like that, but we try as best as we can.
How do you test for that first principles thinking? Because a lot of people look smart on paper. What is the recruiting process to assess this?
Yeah, I mean, so for example, on the engineering side, we have a couple of technical interviews. Those are reasonably standard. We've chosen them for like interesting, not just like leak code type stuff. But then I think the big thing that helps us test for this is we do a work trial, meaning people like come to the office and work with us.
For how long?
For 1 to 2 days. And that's critical because then you really get to see what someone's like. So you get to see first principle thinking because you give them a real problem. So you can't really see someone's first principle thinking if you give them some leak code style problem. You have to give them a real creative problem and see how they think through all the trade-offs and stuff like that. You could tell just from just like seeing the way they think through the problem. Awesome thing about a work trial is you also get to see all these intangibles, like, how do they interact with people at lunch? Are they like optimistic? Are they, can you imagine working with them every day? Are they locked in during the day? Like all these kinds of things you could test during a work trial.
I read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, that you try to, for people who are coming for the work trials, you try to have a meal with them. Is that kind of the intangibles?
It's starting to not scale.
Yeah.
Because we have multiple at the same time. I definitely walk with everyone, or I try to, or me and my co-founder. That's very critical. Like we should continue doing that for literally as physically long as we can because, we've gotten good enough for, a 15-minute walk. We could see a lot in someone. We have all sorts of like methods that we do and like places we take them and just like see how they react.
Double click on that. Like how have you gotten better? What are traits that you are now looking more for? And what are traits that you've stopped caring about that you may have overcared 2 years ago?
We really try to avoid non-playable characters is like the way of saying it. Like people who just go through life like as if they're on a stream and they have no like agency over themselves. Someone should be like, they think about their life and think about the world and like adjust accordingly and don't just follow, like non-followers. And how do you test for that? Well, you could just literally just ask them about their life and like their decisions and stuff like that. And you could kind of see. Also, I just tell people about where X is going and just see how they react to it. Like, do they get excited? Do I see a sparkle in their eye? Reasonably easy to see a sparkle in the eye. Sometimes people are jet lagged because we have to fly them. So you have to adjust for that. But, and so all these subtleties that you learn over many trials.
Are there traits you used to care a lot more about 2, 3, 4 years ago when you started the company that has just like you've gotten better at looking for something that now you think I was over-indexing, it doesn't matter?
I'm sure there are a lot. One thing that just comes to mind right when you're asking that is like speed of talking. Like I happen to really like fast talkers just because like I talk really fast.
Yeah.
And
that is a surprise.
And I don't have time. Like, my like time, like, I just want to move fast and make decisions fast and I get really bored. But I think one thing I've changed there is like there are some people who speak slower, but every token that they say is really high value. So it's not actually the speed of words, it's like valuable tokens per second is kind of like the right metric. So I've adjusted there.
Is there a type of person who's clearly talented, but you have realized it's not a good cultural fit for Exa?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of really experienced, it depends what you mean by talented, but like definitely there's a lot of experienced people and that could often be a negative thing. Like a lot of people who are like, incredible pedigree, even have done amazing work in the past, but can they like adjust to this new agentic world whether it's like the tools they use every day to build or just like the way they think about retrieval. Sometimes people are locked in the past.
I mean, the war for talent is insane right now. And, every company we've invested in feels it. I mean, every founder that I've ever talked to in the last few years feels it. It's always been intense, but it feels crazier now. And you're fighting against these labs who are growing super fast, have big missions. So it's not that you're the only company with a big mission today. They're literally going for AGI and they have insane packages. How are you fighting for the top talent today?
I mean, the types of people that joined us in the early days were people who just don't want to join bigger companies. And I think that's still true today. Like, look, I mean, these companies, they're building really cool stuff. No one could deny that. But they're really large now. And not everyone wants to join a 5,000 or 10,000 person company. It's like very different. You don't feel like you have agency over the output. Like X is still at a size where you could have a massive impact on the company. You could know everyone's name. And like that's just it's just a really different experience. So the experience is very different. I think also just like the upside could be insane at Exa. If you believe in the mission, whatever we're worth now, we could be worth 100,000x that. And so like that's a big deal. I don't want to. We shouldn't just have people who are interested in that, but it is true that like you're not going to get a 100x return from one of these big companies anymore. So I think over time, as Exa has become clearer that we could actually like do this, and these other companies have like kind of like become really big, it's been easier to recruit.
As you've scaled, there's the early team, which is first principles. I know rebel is not the perfectly right word, but directionally that. As you've scaled to 125 people, have you gone towards the point where you now need some people who are execs and more process oriented? As you're kind of finding that balance, how are you ensuring that the culture and the early culture retains itself with more scale?
Yeah. So we're definitely hiring execs now, which is a whole different. It's interesting to do that, and I've had to learn. I try to avoid process, kill it before it lays eggs. Like I'm very against process. Like someone recently tried to introduce a process, and I got really upset. Like no process. I think you could solve a lot of problems with culture, not process, because process is kind of like a rule. So you add a rule here, and then you add another rule here, and you add another rule here, and eventually you feel all corpo because you can't move, and no one can do anything because they're constrained by all these rules. So I would much rather get rid of all the rules and everything's fluid and just like, oh, we have this cultural thing where we do this. And I just don't like codifying things into processes. But yeah, I mean, we are hiring people who have experience coordinating large groups of people, which is definitely a skill, obviously, that you could learn over time from other companies. And we try to hire from the best companies so that they've seen what great is, and then they bring that into the company. Definitely a different type of skill than a new grad who's just like, works crazy, like fast and just has no priors on what companies are like. Like they have amazing ability to think differently, but they don't know what great is necessarily. And so having this mix of people is very valuable at a company our stage.
Maybe double click on culture. You touched on that, culture versus process. How would you describe Exa's culture?
So culture, I could say it in words, but the best way to feel someone's culture is to go into their office and just experience it. And so it is pretty shocking. You come in and just like you hear like laughter. Well, first of all, it's very bright in the office, which is beautiful. Like the sun comes in, which we deliberately chose the office so it would feel like an amazing experience. That's like this double decker, like everyone, it's like kind of like looks like one room, like a coliseum. You come in, and there's just like so much activity. It's just the energy is like super crazy. So it's like high intensity. People are having a lot of fun. They're laughing. Every company probably has kind people, but I think they're like passionate kind. I don't know if there's like a new type of word for that, where it's like they want everyone else to succeed. Everyone's helping each other. So these are kind of like common things in other cultures, but like it's really dialed up.
Is it intense? Is it 996? How would you characterize in today's AI Silicon Valley times?
I don't require people to like work like a certain times, but like people do work extremely hard because they are excited by it. So like one thing that's really important to me is I make sure everyone works on whatever they're most excited by. And luckily, like we're in a business where in any dimension of improvement, we make more revenue because like information is so essential. Everyone needs it. And so it happens to be the case that people are just working on the things that are most exciting to them. And when you do that, it doesn't even feel like work. So people work really hard. I'm not telling them what to do. Having to enforce a rule like 996 is a symptom of a problem, that you are not matching the things you need at the company to the right people.
Could you double click on the process part of it though? You specifically said you're anti-process, right? How does that scale over time?
I guess I'm learning that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I would say some of the places we can improve at the company are probably due to this, like we don't want to have, like not having process sounds great and has benefits, but there are also negatives where like there are coordination problems. And so we're figuring that out as we scale very rapidly, like all these systems, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm anti-process, but like we basically make mistakes and then we quickly like have reviews on what happened and then try to, now we have this cultural learning. It's kind of like a tribe, right?
That could be a process in some ways, is reviewing.
Yeah, we do retros on any problem. We constantly talk to each other, right? Like
Yeah.
people are talking a lot at Exa. They're
Yeah.
exchanging information. So we're in the, around 100 people. When we're 300 people, then this might not work anymore. I would, as much as possible, try to have as minimal process as possible. Probably at some point we'll need real process. And of course we do have some processes, like the founder mode type thing. Like, if you don't just like constantly think about the culture, like it could become siloed and rules everywhere. And like, and you leave for a week, you come back and it just looks like a different company. So I'm constantly like observing like what's going wrong and like trying to remove bottlenecks, and processes are an example of a bottleneck.
We talked about the team and the recruiting and the culture a little bit. Let's shift gears to how you actually run the company. Starting with you, maybe how do you spend your week these days? How much is spent on product, vision, engineering, sales, communication with the team, recruiting?
Obviously changed over the years, 5 years, right? It's like the first couple of years I was just doing engineering and research, which is very fun. Then there's a spectrum from that to like, all people stuff. And there's a spectrum, and like it's increasing. Now I don't do any engineering or research anymore. But I do still like at a high level. It's basically become more and more abstract. Like I stopped coding, but I still did like architectural decisions, and now it's more like high level architectural decisions. I'm still involved in those. Yeah, like engineering and research direction, sales, like talking to a lot of customers, marketing. I think a lot about that, and then just like high level, like what's happening at the company.
If you had to break it up into percentages, do you have a sense today, like the X of today? How does it get, Will?
30% just the operation of the company, 30% go to market, marketing, 30% like engineering, research, vision, reviewing of work.
10% just catch off.
And I can't do bad.
Yeah. I was very curious that you talked about like how you believe better lesson is how you approach like search, right? And just maybe just give color to our audience on what the better lesson refers to. But I was curious if you've extended that to how you run your company.
I think, so better lessons like the idea that like, you could try all sorts of heuristics to solve some problem in software, but like if you just dump data and compute onto something, it'll get better. Like those systems always win out. I feel like the bitter lesson, it doesn't really apply to humans as much. Mm-hmm. You can't just dump humans onto a problem and it just works better. Like for example, you do not want to overhire. We could hire, hundreds of people right now. That would be that would not be good, because humans are not like GPUs. They're not all the same. They don't perfectly work. They don't perfectly coordinate. So I would say a bitter lesson does not apply to humans. Maybe that's why humans will not win out in the end, because we're not like an ant colony that perfectly works with each other.
Is part of the better lesson not applying is that there are more talented people and less talented people. Not every human is fungible, but every unit of compute is fungible and is an additional equal force.
Let's say imagine a world where a bitter lesson worked for humans, meaning like you just dump more humans onto the problem. Like, but you could try, this organizational structure or that one, but really it's all about just dumping humans on the problem. You would need like automaton humans who like just work perfectly in coordination. Like, sometimes when I imagine like humanoid robots in the future in a factory, they're like tossing a tool and they perfectly use it. Like that's just not how humans work. Like humans are way more inefficient. It doesn't quite apply.
Partly I'm trying to understand this too. The fascinating thing about Exa is it's growing super fast. It's become an important part of the infrastructure and is continuing to be. And you're a first-time CEO who's learning as you scale, right? And you've obviously done a great job. That's why you are here in terms of the number of customers and the explosion in usage that Exa is seeing. But I'm also curious as to how you are evolving yourself as a leader and a manager. Like, have there been managerial philosophies or thoughts that you've evolved over the last few years where you used to think this way and now you've completely flipped in how you run the company?
Well, definitely how I run the company has changed a lot. Like, again, like I'm doing a lot more like people management, people coordination issues, less just like, obviously engineering. I've definitely had to adapt, right? Like I have to, being a leader for 5 people is very different from being a leader for 100 people. A lot more of my job is inspiring. So I've had to learn how to inspire, how to talk in front of a crowd. Like, I don't know about its philosophies. It's more just like I'm picking up skills as I go. And like, I realize, okay, wait, the way I used to operate, the way I used to spend my time, it worked when it was 30 people, but now it's 60 people and it doesn't work anymore. So I'm kind of like, like learning as you go, as fast as I can. Definitely meeting amazing people, whether it's like our investor who's just like ridiculously good at sales, let's say, or, a new engineer who's ridiculously good at architecting things. And I just like take that. I'm trying to like be the best possible leader, but I think I have no ego, basically. I just like take things and then just like I'm trying to form the best possible leader. So I'm constantly ask people for feedback. Like one thing I do is like, I constantly be like, hey, just give me critical feedback. And one thing I've learned is people never give you critical feedback because like they're kind of like worried or something. And I try to like force it out of people. And so one thing I've tried is, like you have to, like, I will not stop. Often I go on walks, or we're a walking culture. Like I say, like, you have to give me critical feedback or else we won't stop walking. And then they'll say something. But like, so I'm trying to constantly learn. Yeah. So I've had to change a lot.
You also mentioned how like there are different stages of the company that you've already experienced. The company was one way when you were 10 people, then it changed, and now you're 125 people or such.
Yeah.
Could you talk about the 2 or 3 different stages that have happened and what broke and what then changed in you?
A lot of it, by the way, has to do with physical office structure. So like, for example, when you're 4 people, you fit in a room. And then a big stage that happens is when you can't fit in a room anymore. Like you just physically can't fit in one room. Well, now there's an information, because a company is like a bunch of people sharing information. And when you don't fit in a room, now you have to like, how do you make sure everyone knows what's going on? The next physical infrastructure thing that changes is like, you can't see each other. You like, even if you can't fit in, you might have one office space. It's like one giant thing so you can see each other. But then at some point the office gets big enough where you can't all see everyone. So now not only like you don't know what everyone's up to, but also it's just harder to exchange information. It's really about information exchange. Like information flow is probably like the biggest thing as the company scales. There's also so much going on at the company now that like, I don't want everyone to know everything that's going on. So you physically can't fit into your context window or your memory, right? So, and it's just not efficient. So you need to you have to make sure that only the information that someone needs goes to them. And that's a really fascinating problem. And I think AI can totally help with this. Like everyone uses AI to be way more efficient on an individual level. I don't think we've seen AI like really accelerate productivity on like organizational level. And that's like a really interesting concept. Like how do like, for example, like basically we would love to have a bot where I have an AI assistant and it tells me all the stuff I need to know. So as CEO, the stuff I need to know is a lot more like high level. Sometimes it should go low level. For an engineer, it might be like, this thing. For a go-to-market person, it might be this thing, but it's like some subset of all the information of the company. Right now we use Slack and it's just like so many things going on. So we're trying to figure out this.
Exa is also probably one of the most AI native companies on the planet. How do you guys use AI operationally? So maybe starting like what you just hinted, sounds like you use an AI assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you exactly like on a daily basis or an hourly basis, this is the information that Will needs to consume right now.
I do have this, but it just doesn't. It doesn't work. But why? Because it's missing context. Like, and that's, everyone's realizing the same problem that like, there's so much context. Like if people are talking with each other in the physical world, it's not being recorded. Like, and if you miss that, then like your summary is just gonna be off. If it doesn't have eyes, if your AI is only in the textual world, then you're missing someone's emotion and maybe someone's not having a good day. Like all these things matter, right? So we're very AI native, but like there are huge limitations and we're not yet in a world where I could just get a summary and that's all I need to know. I still need to constantly walk around the office, talk to people, get a feel. I actually will look at people's faces and be like, just like see like, is something wrong? Like I overhear conversations. I might constantly like just walking around and getting a feel for the day.
It's probably slightly reassuring to hear that even an Exa like company has not solved everything with AI, but everybody kind of knows how engineering has been AIified. But let's talk about some of the other departments. Like how do your sales and marketing departments use AI today?
So talk about like Exa being very AI native. Yes, we have Exa.ai. We also want to make AI Exa, which is kind of like an initiative to make like Exa super AI pill. And one thing we do is we have, anyone at the company can get access to like, can run evals, for example, whether you're an engineer or a go-to-market person, ops person, you just like, you talk to the assistant that we've created and it just like has access to a bunch of our systems, or, hey, I want to know, like, has this customer's usage gone up? Like we could just do that. It's like everything's just like very easy to interact with. So that's been a huge boon. Yeah.
But are salespeople like fully using all kinds of AI tools? Are they building their own AI tools? Are your salespeople on Claude Code and just building their own automations for outreach or faster responses to customers or prospects? Like, or ultimately, sales is sales, and they use some AI tools, but it's not as much as if you were a salesperson.
No, I mean, people are definitely building their own tools, and like everyone can help. There's like everyone is a builder. Like sales is a lot of human to human interactions and relationships, and that is a majority of the job. Of course, we have like go-to-market engineers now. They're trying to help as much as possible, but ultimately, it's a lot of like relationships. Yeah,
I'm assuming almost all of your code is AI written.
That's
now.
Right. Yeah.
What is the skill that you're looking for in engineers now in this new world?
The type of person who's very good in this AI world is just very different. And everyone could adapt, I think. It's not, but like, someone who can think in very parallel ways. Like now people are doing like 20 things at the same time. Like the people who can do that and function in that world are just like ridiculously productive. So it's like it kind of rewards the ADD type engineer. I would also say it rewards people who are obsessed with the final outcome. Maybe you could divide engineers into those who like love the tools themselves and those who love the final outcome and like have very good judgment about what is good product. Like they'll just keep telling their agents until it works. Whereas people obsessed with the tools and the code and like the syntax obviously doesn't matter as much anymore.
Do you feel like there's always been this concept of the 10x engineer? In the AI world, what's the delta between the best engineer versus a solid AI enabled engineer?
I would actually argue there are like 100x and 1000x engineers. And the reason I'm saying that is because there are some engineers who will do something that even if you had 100 or 1000, they would never be able to do it, which is a little different from the AI tooling, right? But like those engineers who are able to think those thoughts can now just like implement it, right? So like AI tools make people extremely productive at doing their thing. So you can imagine like someone, yes, you could have someone do what other people would do, but 10x faster. But I think the more interesting thing is like someone who would do things that the other person would never be able to do. So I'm very excited about those people who can just like think thoughts that would never be thought of by 100, average engineers.
What about like the engineering leader? How has the role of an engineering leader evolved in the AI world?
I think because everyone has so much agency, an engineer leader is a little bit more hands off. Like at least at Exo, we have a very decentralized organizational structure where like the best ideas come from anywhere. And so I think like engineering leader is very much like a coordinator and unblocker, as opposed to like a top down, like, here's what you should do. Just because like the best ideas are coming from everywhere, like everyone's talking to like genius AIs. Imagine if you had an army of interns and each intern had access to Terrence Tao's. Like you don't want to tell those army of interns what to do. You want the interns to talk their Terrence Tao's and then come up with the ideas, right? So I do think an engineering leader is more about a coordinator now.
Are there roles at Exa today because of the pace at which this AI is moving and enabling individuals like that didn't exist? Like maybe one that you already hinted at is a GTM engineer. Like are there roles in every department that are forming this field? Like do you have almost like every department has its own engineer?
I don't think every department needs an engineer. I think everyone can basically act like their own engineer. So increasingly, you might not need that. I would say there are interesting roles now that are happening at the intersection of roles that used to be separated. For example, like design, front-end engineering, and then like, I don't know, deployment can all be one person, right? Basically, people can do like huge amount of things now that they across different departments. Or we don't have departments, but like across different parts of the company that they couldn't do before. The generalist really wins in this world, basically. You don't want specific people.
When I talk to people, a lot of people, CEOs are telling me, even in the AI orgs, like I was talking to Arvind at Glean recently and many other AI native orgs where they're saying even within their organizations, there's the top 5% of fully AI native people who are just supercharging themselves with all kinds of automation. These are like you, pretty AI native orgs, but they're still laggards.
Yeah, no, I would say everyone is using AI tools. There's no one who's not. There are people who use it better or more, and then there are people who use it less. But everyone understands that like it's just way better to use it.
What's the hardest mental shift that people have to make if they're coming up in traditional orgs? They've been working for 15 years.
At Exa, the hardest thing people need to transition to is the speed of shipping. And so like in traditional orgs or bigger orgs, like you might take a long time to ship something, maybe a month. Like a month is an insane amount of time. Nothing should ever take a month to ship at Exa. And so like we try to teach this culture really fast. Like the first week you got to ship something important and then post about it. And that's really critical because it teaches people, okay, like this is the standard. And just you see people shipping things like nonstop, like multiple times a day. And that's the expectation. I think people will rapidly adjust to that. I mean, we only hire people who can do that kind of thing, but yeah, some people have to adjust.
How do you even manage today's pace of shipping? Like you're talking about like people shipping multiple times a day. How is the organization coming together on the engineering side as a cohesive unit attacking the goals if everybody's shipping almost?
Yeah, so one thing we put a lot of effort into is like automations. With our search engines, we have constantly doing automated evals, right? And like I've heard of like, bigger search engines like Google, they have to go through like a human has to look through like the final thing. And like we try as much as possible to just have AI automation. So like you feel very comfortable shipping something. And as long as it passes the automations, you're good. And so we have like really smart intelligences testing all parts of the product before a new thing ships. So that really helps.
Maybe let's shift gears towards how you are scaling as a CEO. The company has 10x'd in the last year or so. What's the part that you've had to change in your leadership style just in the last year from 10 to 125 people?
I mean, honestly, I'm thinking the biggest thing is like I've had to learn how to speak in front of crowds. I would say that's one of the biggest skills I've learned is every Monday I give a kind of like a speech in front of like the whole team. And now it's getting like quite big and it would have made, I was scared of that kind of thing when I was younger. But now I love it. And so I think there's an example of just like, I was forced to do this every week. And what used to be, really scary is now something I really enjoy. I've had to learn how to make decisions really fast. And so and this is I think an awesome skill that has carried to the rest of my life. Like, oh, should I go to that restaurant or that restaurant? Boom. Like, just done. Like, I just don't.
Yeah.
It's like really fast. I've had to learn how to communicate extremely clearly. Because one thing I was surprised by when we got to like the 20, 30 person size was, like if you're at all unclear in like, oh, what exactly do we do here? It'll just like trickle down to the company. I'll have like serious problems. So I try to be extremely clear in my messaging. Certainly when I send a message to the whole company, I edit that for like an hour.
Because as a CEO, like every word matters. Like everyone is hanging on to.
That's also like a bit of a surprising thing.
Yeah,
I've had to learn to watch a little bit like what I say in terms of like I might say something like, oh, like lunch should be at this time, but like I'm like joking, and then suddenly it'll be at that time.
Yeah.
And so like I love brainstorming, right? But sometimes when I'm brainstorming, people interpret that as like commands. They're not. So I have to be like extremely explicit, like FYI, this is just complete brainstorming. Feel free to just completely contradict me. And that's been helpful.
But you've also maybe on the human side have become a manager of managers, right?
Yeah.
So one goes from an IC to a manager of managers. How has that evolution hit you, or not really much different?
It's been sad to be like out of the details of everything. So, when we were 5 people, 10 people, I could be in the details of literally everything. I used to like pick out what chairs we would have in the office. And I loved that. I love being the details. And so there's been this thing where I have to increasingly not be in the details of things and only be in details of things that are problematic or the biggest bottleneck for the company. As I manage people who manage, I have to trust that they're going to like get into the details. That's kind of been a thing to learn. Like how do you manage people and make sure that they bring that intensity and detail orientedness to what they're doing. And so I've been learning how to do that well.
You came up as an engineer. Have you already made the mental shift from being an engineer to a CEO now?
I like to think that they're not that different. Like, what is an engineer? They're trying to solve problems. Like, I'm not a software engineer anymore, but I am an engineer. I'm engineering the company. I'm trying to solve problems constantly. Like, every day is just solving problems. Like, even like sales, for trying to have a customer, like you and solve a problem for them. The way I said it is clear. It's like it's engineering. So if you abstract engineering, I'm still an engineer. But yeah, it is a lot of people, like engineering, like people and the culture and processes and stuff like that.
Are there decisions or situations where your engineering instinct kicks in naturally and you've had to correct yourself and say, hey, that because of the human aspect of leadership, I need to think differently? Like, are there instincts you've curbed?
It can sometimes be like overly logical, saying exactly what is true. And sometimes you have to like, it's more of an emotional argument. Like when you're inspiring, like for example, if I'm inspiring someone or the team, I don't know exactly how big we'll be or how many people will be using Exa, but I might choose a number. Like, hey, 1 billion people will be using us 2 years. I don't actually know that, right? So my logical brain is like, well, it could depend on this. And when you're giving a speech, you just say 1 billion people because it's roughly right. And does the details matter? So that's the kind of thing I've had to learn, like go a little bit less logical and more emotional. And that's an example.
You're learning fast and the company is growing super fast. Who are your advisors or even CEO friends who are your sounding boards on decisions or even just personal growth as a leader?
I mean, my co-founder is super critical. We've known each other for 10 years now. We were roommates in college. Like we can like read each other's thoughts. I could look at him and know what he's thinking. So that's been critical. I have no idea how we'd get here. I mean, we would not have got here without having each other. So that's like, we're like one organism, which I love. And then we have advisors, right? And I learned from like, we have an amazing board who like, I don't know what other boards are like because it's my first company, but this board is amazing. And we have advisors who are amazing. I don't have some crazy network where I go to like, like retreats or something. Like I don't really do that. One interesting thing is like a lot of my role models, they're not like real. they're fictional. I have been obsessed with superheroes since I was a kid. And I continue to be obsessed with them. And I think they're actually like, it sounds ridiculous, but like they're critical to like how I make moral decisions, for example. I look up to them like I do like to my older brother. I also have an older brother who's been a role model.
Is there advice that you've gotten along the journey? Now you look back and you feel like, man, that was completely wrong advice as I scaled.
Oh, I mean, definitely the first advice I got when I told everyone we're building a search engine better than Google in 2021 was like, what are you, nuts?
Yeah.
I kind of laughed, but also was like, maybe I am nuts. So there was definitely I wasn't sure this made sense for couple of years. I had like drive. Okay, maybe it's possible. I think like maybe like a year and a half in, we made a retrieval breakthrough that really was like, oh my God, you can be way better than Google. It is possible to do all this crazy stuff. And then there have been other like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's been so much advice that I've gotten that's been wrong. No one knows the company remotely close to you. And if someone knows it better than you, that's a problem. Like that, like something's wrong. You're obsessed with it. You're living it every day. Like there's certain types of advice if it's been done before. Like building a go-to-market org is not like we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So of course, for that kind of thing, I could totally take advice from like our CRO or something. But for like the future of AI search, like no one's going to really know that except for us.
You talked about how you had to learn about hiring execs, and now that you look back, you have a ton of advice even for other young CEOs who come to you sometimes. Could you talk about like what were you bad at when hiring execs that you've completely like grown out of?
Yeah. I think it took like only like a month or two to like get good or get better. I'm sure there's like people who are way better, and I'm still learning. There were a few things that were just very obvious. Like, for example, I would do Zoom calls instead of meeting in person. We were looking for, various execs. Like, in person is just way better. And these are important hires. It's worth it for you to spend a lot of time going to wherever they are. Even if they're in Australia, you got to go there. So you got to go meet them. One other interesting thing is like, it's really important to show that you care about them and like really want them. Maybe at first I was like, more about like having them sell me on themselves, but really you have to sell yourself. You have to sell them. You have to tell them that you want them, because if you have good execs you're trying to hire, they have infinite optionality, right? And so they have to really trust that they're going to be, have huge impact at the organization, that you're going to care about them. And so like, I think the right balance is like, we're awesome and you're awesome. We really want you to join us. It's like you're leaning in really heavily. You're not like acting too cool.
What actually drives you is a question that I would love to understand. Like, you're clearly an intense person who's, working insanely hard. Could you take a step back for us and like, where does the drive actually come from?
I don't think I've really taken a break ever. I worked extremely hard in elementary school and in middle school, high school. Like my friends would come over to our house, and I would like not meet them because I really just wanted to work and stuff. I mean, I grew up in a hardworking family. My parents were really hardworking. I just wanted to do something big always. So I've been journaling for a long time. Looking back at my journals, I'll always see like, okay, like what if I was like this crazy thing? Or like if I could be like Iron Man, or like it's changed over the years. Albert Einstein was inspiring. Like I wanted to be like those types of people. I never really cared so much about my personal life. I think it's maybe one interesting thing. Like I just don't care. Like I don't care about having like, going to the park and enjoying myself. I just never cared. I really just want to build something amazing. So that's always been the drive. And so obviously to build something amazing, you have to work really hard. I also just, I get excited by things. X is like the perfect storm of exciting thing that really matters for the world. And that wasn't always the case, right? When we started, it wasn't clear we were going to like build something awesome. It was a bet. And again, a lot of the inspiration was like mission oriented. It was like, okay, this is important for the world. So it's a noble mission. Even if it fails, it'll be valuable. And there were a lot of hard things, especially in the beginning days, where it was like, okay, does this even make sense? Like rolling in my bed at night, like, there's so many other things to do. Like, does this make sense? But like the mission really motivated me. I think once it started going, my motivation, like once it started like working, my motivation started to change. So certainly when we started hiring people, okay, now lives are on the line. Like, people who are really smart, who could have done anything, are now like relying on this company. So when it was like 5 people, 10 people, you kind of feel that. But the bigger it gets, the more that, like now we have over 100 people who could have done lots of other things, and they're doing this. They have families. Like I feel that pressure. And I want to make them like, I want this to be the best time of their lives. That's a pressure. And it's motivating just to know that the tribe is relying on me and the company. So like mission, like it's just a noble cause, the people. And now the third thing is like, I actually think we could do it. I fully believe that we could be the information layer for the world in a way that no one's ever done before, like perfect search. Infrastructure that never existed before will exist because of Exa. One thing that's interesting, I have never had even a thought about burnout in the past couple of years, like zero. It's just not a thought in my head. I could do this for decades, like until it's solved. I don't think it'll take decades. Luckily, I think it won't take that long. I just feel this incredible responsibility. So I think competition is very exciting. So like that also adds like a little bit of a game aspect to it. Like I love sports when I was a kid, and so like and still love sport. I don't play that often, but it's just more fun when you're competing. Like when it's like, for example, if you're running in a track, you could run fast, but when someone starts like coming up behind you, you run faster. It's kind of like that vibe.
But it does sound like the desire to go big seems like you were saying earlier that it was innate pretty early, and then you found your mission, and then it has compounded to a competitive thing that you're having fun building, and now it does seem like it's compounded to a different level. You also said like superheroes are a huge part of your mental models and psyche. Like, where did that come from?
The first superhero movie I remember watching is Spider-Man 2002 with my dad. I was 6, and that was like life-changing. I mean, that was like, holy cow. Like he was a nerdy kid. I was a nerdy kid. And he just like became the superhero who changed the world. And I love that he was so humble about it. Like he just like helped the world, and he had to give up the thing he loved the most, Mary Jane. Because, the last line was like, this is my gift, my curse. I'm getting shivers when I say it. Like that's like such a beautiful message. And so a lot of superheroes have that exact same ethos where it's they have something they need to do for the world and they don't take recognition for it. They often have to hide their identity to save their loved ones. But like, that's pretty cool that they're very self-sacrificing. So I've always looked up to those types of people. So like Spider-Man was the first one. Then the next Spider-Man came out in like 2004. That was pretty good too. And then what was it? Like Iron Man, I think, 2008. That was a big one because I was okay. Like this is a superhero, like self-made through technology. That was very inspiring. The Dark Knight series was like the next big one. Became obsessed. I know like every line. I love that one because you said you like Batman, right? So like, yeah, I don't have to tell you. And then I would say the next era of superheroes for me was like the Mission Impossible series. Now it's like I live and breathe that. I watch that like all the time. Every weekend I'm like watching clips from it. I listen to the music. I listen to this song called Firefight every day in the morning to wake up. And then also Will Figure It Out is another song from Final Reckoning, the last movie. And like it's very real for me. It's like very inspiring. It's like I don't know what, like I don't meditate, but I imagine this is like as the same, the same types of things people do, like their rituals, their religion. Like this is kind of like it has that similar vibe for me.
Why have real life superheroes like, let's say, Elon Musk or I don't know, political figures or Albert Einstein not have the same impact? Because you did mention Albert Einstein. Is it the hero's journey? Is it?
No, I think it's actually because like real life people are a lot messier. And I mean, I have immense respect for all the people you mentioned, but like Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire is so pure in his desires for the world. And like, at least like a lot of the famous people in the world are just not like that, because to get famous, often you have to, be a maniac in some dimension.
Yeah.
and that's awesome. And like they help the world, but like, I'm sure they exist, these people, but it's very rare to be like a true Batman. By the way, why you don't know about them? Because they're self-sacrificing. They don't claim the light. You don't even know who Batman is. So it's like, it's almost like an oxymoron for there to be a famous real superhero. Because if you're a real superhero, you're anonymous. So I think that's maybe part of it. Obviously, like it's cinema, right? So cinema is going to be like epic. The soundtrack is perfectly timed. If I watched the Batman movies without Hans Zimmer's soundtrack, I wouldn't be as inspired, right? So it's a bit like it's fictional. It's fantasy.
You mentioned you listen to the Mission Impossible soundtrack literally every morning.
Yeah.
And what's that ritual about? Like you walk towards office with that, or like?
No, I do it in the home. I guess sometimes I do it in the Uber. Yeah. The idea is like, what I like about the Mission Impossible movies is that they have this like really high stakes mission, and they're constantly encountering problems that seem insurmountable, and yet they surmount them. And I think that's a great analogy for a startup, right? Like we have this crazy high stakes mission, and literally every day it used to be 5 problems a day, now they're like 20 problems a day, and you just have to solve them. Like there's no option. Especially like for me, like there's a problem, got to solve it. You can't just like let it fester. You have to solve it immediately. You do that like over and over again for years, and then you just get this confidence that like, oh, we'll solve it. So I do say like there's this meme at Exit now, like we'll figure it out. It's like completely taken from the Mission Impossible movies. They say that a lot, like we'll figure it out. And it's like, it's a beautiful phrase. I don't know why it's not used more. It's like, it's very optimistic. People see we have these problems and then we solve them and then you forget about them. And I often like to remind people where we came from at the company because they're like, oh, wait, we did that. Then of course, if the search got so much better in 3 months, and of course in 3 months it can be so much better. So like for new hires, we do like an onboarding. I do a mission onboarding with them. I show them, actually I made a video of like the past of Excel, like the past 5 years. Because I always I say like, I'm going to say a lot of crazy things about where we're going. For you to believe me, you have to see where we come from. So here's a video where we came from. And then they see that like, wow, this company went from like nothing to this. We're still nothing, but look how far we're going to go. And then because they saw how far we came, they believe me.
Last superhero question. Otherwise, we can spend the rest of the evening here. Favorite superhero?
He's not a superhero technically, but Ethan Hunt.
Ethan Hunt.
It used to be Bruce Wayne, but not anymore.
Really? Ethan Hunt?
Yeah. I mean, you know Ethan Hunt, right?
I know Ethan Hunt, but I would not have said my answer is the opposite. So we can debate that later over a drink. Segue this back into you as a CEO and the inner game that you've gone through. Where does the superhero thing show up for you on a day-to-day or a weekly basis as you run the company? Is it more in the back of your mind, the motivation? Where does it show up?
I think it's like a guidance. It's like, what would this person do? How would they act? If I'm facing a hard decision, okay, like whether it's like a people problem, like I always try to like, what would Ethan Hunt do? He would never get emotional. He really cares about people. He deeply cares about people. He deeply cares about the mission. He'll make hard decisions sometimes. Like they're actually like perfect role models. Just simulating them in my head can tell me often what the right thing to do is. They would be great CEOs.
What's the part of being a leader or a CEO that's been lonelier than expected?
Weirdly, people are, as we get bigger, people are a little more like when I sit down at the lunch table, people are a little more like, I don't know, like cognizant of what they're saying or something like that, which is sad because I'm just a guy, and it's just like, so you become a little more distant from the people of the company. Though like, I'm extremely friendly. Like I walk around, like I've inside jokes with literally everyone. So I try to counter that, but I think as the company gets bigger, that is just necessary or it happens. So it does get a little lonelier, yeah.
Is there ever doubt in the journey? Is there a nagging thought that keeps coming back every other night at 2 a.m. as you kind of keep growing yourself also?
So 2 a.m. is like, I think where my best thoughts happen.
Okay, great.
Mostly because I know like still people are up at the company, but I know most of the company is sleeping. You have to imagine, I come into the office around like 9:30, and the second I come in, it's just like chaos. Like there's so many things going on. There's so many problems. There's so many amazing things. It's just like Slack is like going crazy. It's just this like monstrosity of like energy. And so like so many things are going on, so many threads. We have so many priorities at the same time, which I know is also an oxymoron. You can't have so many priorities, but we do. And then like it's just a jumble, and then it goes till like literally, then I'll go home at like maybe like midnight or something. And then I'll go shower or whatever. And then I get to like process. Okay, now it's like, and then my brain starts to like synthesize everything that happened. And then it's like, oh wait, like this is the most important. It's like kind of like seeing, I think, the most important patterns. And then I'll send a bunch of messages at like 2 a.m. to like people, okay, like we gotta do this, we gotta do that, like we gotta change that. And then I'll fall asleep. And I usually like collapse. Like I'll just like throw my computer to the side and just collapse. And then do it over again. And then weekends are slower. So I get to like think a lot more there. And a lot of like important like strategic decisions happen over the weekend. But that's kind of like the day, which I just love.
My question partly was about more like, does self-doubt ever creep in, or you don't know self-doubt?
I have pretty clear problems that I need to fix. For example, I'm like, I overpromise. Like this is like something I have to learn, right? Like I overpromise. Oh yeah, I'll get back to you. I'll do that. And like I've had to learn like I can't do that. But I still do it. This is like an example problem. So like I don't know about self-doubt, but I like self-criticism. Oh, I'm constantly like, oh, God damn it. And like, like I have like strong emotional responses for things that are pretty trivial. Like, like how did I miss that? And I'll like think about it really hard, but because it's so emotional for me, I think I often like don't do it again or don't do it in the same way. And so I am in a constant state of like, self-critique.
Is it managerial feedback that you've gotten about yourself, whether through advisors, CEO coaches, or board members, that has been hard to digest?
I don't ever think it's hard to digest. I welcome feedback, but yes, they've definitely, like, board members are like, we've seen this 1,000 times, you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, God. It's usually not hard to digest. I know they're right. It's just like, I don't want to do that. Like I really liked the way I was doing my job. Yeah. And I have to change. But that's just necessary. Like, for example, I really didn't like recruiting at first. I just wanted to code. And then I was like, oh, you Jeff, you do the recruiting. But then I started to do it because I had to. And then I started to win, get some wins, like hire people. And you get a lot of dopamine. And now I love recruiting. I can do it all day. But now I can't just do recruiting all day. I have to do other things. And so I've had to force myself to change, but then I end up liking it if I get good at it.
You mentioned that burnout is not a thing for you, and I understand it, but at the same time, there's a speed and intensity at which you're running. How are you managing your own psyche and health, or you're young, you're running on adrenaline, it doesn't
I
feature?
really don't think much about this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to optimize my sleep. Like, I'm very sensitive to sound, light, and temperature. And it's actually impossible in San Francisco to find a place that both has AC and is not loud, because all the AC is in like the modern building. This is the most annoying thing about San Francisco, and I just can't solve the problem. So I just deal with it. And I think I'm sensitive to all these things probably because I am like very, I'm stressed. Like there's a lot of things going on, and like I'm constantly thinking. So if some sound happens, if some fire truck goes off, like I'll wake up. It was really annoying. So I think sleep is probably my biggest problem, but everything else is fine. And I would just say one thing about burnout. Like I like if you actually think about what burnout is, it's like it's wheels turning but not moving. Because we're progressing, we're progressing fast, and the company keeps changing, I don't feel burnout. Like I think if, for example, we were working so hard and we weren't progressing, then maybe burnout would start. But because we've just been like smoothly progressing over the course of a couple of years, like I don't feel it.
Okay, next up is our quickfire round. You ready?
Yeah.
Red flag you never ignore in the candidate when recruiting.
When someone is confidently wrong.
Most overrated thing about being a young founder.
You don't get much credit for it. People just want, like, does the product work?
Most underrated thing.
You have no real obligations, so I can just work nonstop.
A search query that Exa does better than Google.
Really any list of entities, so like lists of companies or people.
A search query that Google still does better than Exa that irritates the fuck out of you.
I was going to say like flight tickets, but it doesn't really irritate me.
Okay. The book on civilization, finished or abandoned?
Delayed.
The bitter lesson applied to something people should take more seriously.
We could have all sorts of heuristics of solving problems in the world, but I think a lot of it just comes down to like more and more knowledge. So you throw more and more knowledge at the world, I think a lot of problems get solved.
So Ethan Hunt always figures out how to get to Mission Impossible. What are you, Will Bryk, trying to figure out as a leader for Exa's Mission Impossible to come true?
I guess perfect alignment within the company on what is most important and why this matters. This is my mission, if I choose to accept it.
All right.
Yeah.
Will, this was great.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.